So I would love questions as they come. So please don't hesitate. I don't pay attention to the Zoom meeting video, so you'll just have to speak up. So if you put it in chat or raise your hand, I won't notice.
Okay, I will, and I will keep I will keep myself muted to prevent accidental stuff, but I am going to keep an eye on chat and on the video. So if you raise your hand or wiggle your hand
Perfect.
or put something in chat, I'll try to communicate that to Christina, because I know what it's like to be a presenter and to try to keep an eye on chat. It can be challenging. So without further ado.
Excellent. All right. So, and of course, then I'm like, oh, there's something in chat. I should go check that. I'm going to go ahead and present my screen here, and let's go ahead. Ken, do you mind giving me permission to share my screen? Zoom's changed it up in the last 2 months, so you have to actually give permission now. Yay! Okay, fantastic. All right, so tonight we're talking about non-rectangular phones for non-rectangular people. And everyone has a rectangular phone, but how about a circle? So first question people ask is, sorry, I just lost, there we go. Why a circle? And what they mean, of course, is, you know, what made you decide on a round phone? And there's actually a lot of science behind the device itself. I initially developed the phone because I wanted something different than mainstream phones, something that would fit better in my hands. But there's actually lots of science behind the round shape. So first of all, a lot of research has gone on determining that humans prefer curves. So the theory is that when a human sees something that has softer edges, it's viewed as less dangerous. And so frequently, for example, in this particular research by Harvard Medical School, when participants are given a choice between an object with sharp edges and an object with rounded edges, they generally choose the rounded edges. And these are some of the images that were given the particular participants in this particular study. Also, round shapes are easier on the eye. So even if you don't believe the research, you can just check yourself with this image here. Your eye is definitely drawn to the images which are cropped in the shape of a circle. So, and you may have noticed that a lot of our social media avatars have changed from a square to a circle for our profile picture. So whether you're talking for Facebook or Twitter or other social media platforms because of this research. Another data point is that 90% of people drop their phone about once a month. And it could be that carrying around a plate of glass is basically not well adapted to the shape of our hand. And so we propose that maybe rectangular smartphones are unnaturally shaped and that maybe a form closer to that of, for example, a polished stone that you would get out of a river would be more comfortable in the hand, and you would be less likely to drop that. One other feature that we have and that has been well touted on our phone has nothing to do with the round shape itself, but we interviewed over 1,000 people about their cell phone usage before we ever made our current smartphone. And it was interesting. In particular, millennials were expressing a sense of sadness that everyone was so heads down into their smartphone. I'm sorry, can you hear me? It looks like my video just stopped. Ken, you're muted. I see your mouth moving, but I don't see.
Yes, I can hear you. Your video seems to have stopped, but your screen share is still there.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch. Sorry, I'm just gonna Excuse me for a second here. I'm going to switch my camera. I was trying a new camera out, and obviously it's not going to work. Okay.
There we go.
Give me now. Let's see.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and you can still see my screen share, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me turn down this light though. Great. Okay. So because of everyone being so heads down in their phone, we have seen an increase in anxiety and loneliness reported across the country, at least in the United States. And so one of the features of our phone that has nothing to do with the round interface itself, but has to do with our dual headphone jacks, helps combat this. And despite all these statistics, 77% of the US population use a rectangular smartphone. So the solution, the Cyrcle Phone 4G LTE with Android. So images are easier on the eye to view, fits better in your hands and your pocket. We have 2 headphone jacks. It's easier to share your videos and music with friends using those 2 headphone jacks. And with the 2 SIM card slots, you can have both your business and personal lines, or if you're traveling, you can have your domestic and international cards. So in the United States, the dual SIM card option is not necessarily prized, but outside of the United States, this is a highly prized piece of equipment. So we decided to include that on our Cyrcle Phone. So with the dual headphone jack, instead of seeing people being isolated, you can see them actually interacting with each other as they can share their music and videos, which are popular among our demographic. So we're really happy about that. The image at the top was, of course, shot for our upcoming pre-sale campaign video, but the one down at the bottom was actually captured just, I should say, in the wild, but it was at CES 2020. We had our prototypes there and let people interact with them, and they really enjoyed the dual headphone jacks. In fact, it was more touted than the shape itself. So a little bit of background about myself. I have degrees in biochemistry and physics. I have a master's in engineering. I have an eclectic work background. I've worked on nuclear submarines. I worked on the medicines that people take today for AIDS. I was the technician running PCR on the samples for the clinical trials. I was able to see some of the first results that we had. It was very exciting back then. And I've been a biochemist in Japan. I filed 2 different patents on testing phosphates in rainwater. I was also but most of my life I've been a software engineer, and that was at Microsoft and also at NEC, which is a Japanese hardware company. On this journey with the Cyrcle Phone, I've taught over 200 individuals how to make their own phone. I teach these classes at places like Maker Fairs, Geek Girl Con, and various other organizations, but we've had to stop that. It's not a money-making, it's not a money-making venture. We sure enjoy doing it. Our whole team enjoys helping people build their own smartphones, but it really takes a lot of money to do it. It's about $10,000 every time we go out and teach people how to make their own phone. So it's difficult to even charge money for it and have people come. So yeah, we've had to stop that, unfortunately. And I also have a lifelong passion for electronics. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about the journey that I've gone on for this, this particular phone. So when I decided to make my own phone, I thought, gosh, this may be hard. You know, I haven't done electronics for a number of years. And so, you know, I'd have to start from scratch. And it just so happened that I started building phones in 2014. And it just so happened that in 2012, a gentleman called David Mellis, and he's one of the 5 founders of the Arduino. So if you're familiar with Arduino maker boards, he's one of the lesser known of the 5 founders, but he made his own DIY candy bar phone. And so I put that together, and that was really exciting. It had 156 parts. And this is just a video of me making my first call with it. And Ken, can you let me know if you can hear the sound of the video?
Yes, it's a little faint, but we can hear it.
Okay.
I just say to myself, that is so cool. I love seeing the bare naked phone there. That's great.
Yes. So I don't know if you remember when we had feature phones, we definitely had like the Nokia is a candy bar styled phone. And that was a really exciting moment for me there. So I phoned my best friend. Let me see if I can get to the next phone. So this is the second phone that I made. It was designed by Adafruit. Lady Ada designed it herself. But I noticed it was very similar to a Raspberry Pi phone that was released about the same time. So when I present this one at when I have audiences that I show how to make phones to, I present this alongside with the Pi version as well. This one's more Arduino based.
Hi, can you hear me?
So, little known fact.
I'm calling for my new Detour corporate phone.
I have a bad bubblegum habit. And I apologize, I'm actually chewing my gum in this video.
What she told me
I love the smile on your face. You could just see your excitement.
So here I am talking to my husband.
Thank you. Thanks. So showing it off, the camera, showing it off, you were my first.
So this has
I love you, sweetheart.
an Arduino base and a Fona shield on top of it.
Okay, I'll let you go back to sleep. Thanks for, okay. Okay.
Are those antennas hanging off the side there?
Yes. So you see the antenna. You'll also see the buzzer. So the little motor that's hanging off of the side. And it's kind of exciting to, let's see if I can go to the next. There we go. So this is the third smartphone that I put together. And this is Seed Studio's Rephone Kit Create. And they were a Kickstarter that just happened to be released while I was putting together all these phones. And I thought, gosh, it's Kickstarter. Maybe they'll never, deliver. You never know about these things. And it turned out to be a game changer for the business, for our business. So the cool thing about Seed Studio's Rephone Kit is that it requires no soldering. So David Mellis's board required, I had to solder 156 components on there. That took 3 days for me to do. And Lady Ada's, let's see, for her Fona kit, you just have 5 components to solder on. So you have to solder on the speaker, the buzzer, the microphone, and there's 2 more. Also, if you're missing the head, if you ordered the Fona shield without the headers, then you have to solder those on. But the Seed Studio Rephone Kit is the kit that we've taught most of our students how to put together. you can put it together in less than 5 minutes, and it has a paper shell that you can put on the outside. It comes with this green paper shell that you see here pictured. In addition, it comes with a brown paper shell as well that you can decorate and make your own. And kids really love that. So let me show this particular video.
Hi, my name is Christina Cyr, and I put together the new phone from C. Cannot wait to use it all the time. Just went out.
If there's a way to turn up the volume, that'd be good. We can hear it, but it's pretty faint.
Yes. I don't know how we can.
Either might pick up or not.
So the telephone that you hear ringing in the background is actually my phone call that I'm dialing from the rephone kit. But the Metrics employee is not picking up the phone while I'm trying to call. So that's the shortest video of all. But the reason why that was a game changer for us was we headed to Mobile World Congress in 2016, February 2016, and I received these kits in January 14th, something like that. Anyway, or maybe that's when I finished it, but I managed to put together a round phone based on this kit. And I contacted Seed Studio and asked them, you know, would it be okay if we displayed a round phone using their kit at Mobile World Congress? And they were like, sure, why not? Sure, okay. So we went, and really you know, my original intention was just to show it as a prototype and then, you know, finish it out later. But so many people asked to purchase the rephone kit that we ended up offering it at as a Kickstarter. So let me see if I can go to the, sorry, this, there we go. So this is the Kickstarter campaign that we launched with the round Cyrcle phone. So using the Seed Studios modules, we put those in, I put those in a brown format, and we launched this as a Kickstarter. We offered either you had a choice of receiving all of the components and assembling them yourself at home, or paying an extra $50 and coming into a makerspace near you across the country. And we would teach you in person how to assemble it. And no one chose the mail-in version. Everyone chose the in-person version. So it was a substantial difference. So it was $150 if you just received it by mail, but $200 if you came in for the class. And it was a remarkable success. So we were really fortunate there. And this is the campaign video. So this one's a little bit longer. Sorry about that.
Hi,
and I'll see if I can.
And I'm Linda Inagala. We are co-founders of a company called Detour. And here is our story. One day, I was tired of my rectangular phone constantly falling out of my back pocket, or searching for a place to put my phone when my clothing had no pockets at all. So I decided to build a phone in the shape of a circle, called the Cyrcle Phone, which could fit in women's smaller pockets. Sorry, we'll just play it a little bit faster. I built a tester version, which was big and bulky, but perfect for discussions. But when we set out to test it with women, one thing happened. Men went crazy over it, and they became our first customers. They adored the bright colors. They liked that the phone fit in any pocket, even a men's breast pocket. And you can 3D print the case in any color. But more importantly, we can teach you how to build it yourself. Since May 2016, we at Detour have been offering a Build Your Own Phone class at Metrics Create Space, a makerspace in Seattle. And for the next 7 months, we'll be taking our class on the road to various makerspaces throughout the country. Why? We want to share what we've learned so far on our phone making journey and highlight other makerspaces. In our class, we discuss in an easy to understand way maker boards, kit phones, SIM cards, and basic phone components. Then we teach you how to build our circular phone. It is based on Seed Studio's Rephone Kit, a simple phone that makes calls and receives text. Then we show you how to modify the device's software so that you can add your own ringtone. At the end of the class, you will walk out with Detour Cyrcle Phone, which you have built and customized yourself. Now, many people think that building your own phone is an insurmountable task. But actually, our phone has very few components and it's easy to put together. Our class is just over 2 hours. Most of it is educational, but about 30 minutes of it, we will actually assemble the phone. Let's be honest, this will not replace your smartphone or even a flip phone. It's 2G and it has a screen the size of a large postage stamp. But it is a fun hobby phone to learn on. Because really, who do you know who can build a circular phone? How can you help us? Here on Kickstarter, you can buy a ticket to join one of our classes. You could buy a t-shirt, or you could donate. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in one of our classes at Makerspace, hopefully near you. See you there. Bye.
Christina, before you go on,
Yep.
tell us, who are we? Maybe a little bit about your team, or maybe you get into it later, but who is we?
Yes. So who you saw pictured there was actually my best friend, Linda Inagawa, and she was our original co-founder. And she was with us for the year of 2016. Unfortunately, she had family medical emergencies that she had to resign over, and it was unexpected for both of us. We were really having a good time, and it was really sad. Everybody is okay now, but yeah, it was one of the crushing blows of the journey, I guess I'd put it that way. And it took me a while to recover from that. So I actually had 2 excellent co-founders join me in May the following year. So Linda had to step down December 15th, around there, of 2016. And I even had people ask to be my co-founder right afterwards, which is a really rare situation because most of the time you have to really look for co-founders. But I just wasn't ready yet. And so anyways, so now we have Wendy Wilson is our COO and Debbie Liu is our Chief Procurement Officer. Wendy Wilson has had 16 years of experience with people, products, and processes. So she has excellent background for us. Debbie Liu and I both worked at Microsoft. She worked for the Windows Phone team, and her network in China is fantastic. So she has saved us over $4 million so far on components for our 4G phone. So in particular for the round display. So really fortunate to have both of them. And it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because I was going over this presentation with my husband last night, and he's like, nobody's going to want to hear about that. So I left this slide off with their pictures, but hopefully I can share those pictures later. So.
Yeah, I'm interested in kind of how it came together, how you operate as a company, but go on with your presentation there. I just wanted to get a feel for who the we was. It's not just you. In other words, not just you. You have a team.
Right. We've been really fortunate to have over 60 contractors work with us over the journey. Most of them were actually leading up to the 4G development. So we had over 50 contractors not only see us through the 2G, but up until we started developing for the 4G. And then part of the story is that we had a 2-year delay on the radio module, and we had 12 contractors working for us the day that I found out that our radio module was going to be delayed, and I had to lay them all off. that weekend. So that was really painful. But since then, we've had about 10 contractors help us with the development of the 4G LTE Android phone, and that has been fantastic. We've been really fortunate to have gifted electrical engineers who have turned embedded engineers. So through the course of their stay with us, they've turned into embedded engineers. But definitely their electrical engineering skills have definitely helped us. So I think I have a picture somewhere of everyone, and I'll see if I can find that by the end of the presentation. So talking about the 4G model, the big challenge was, where do we find the round display? As you can see, as we left it with the 2G model, it had a square display that we just covered with a bezel, and products like the Nest thermostat originally just had a square display covered by a bezel. And of course that was an option for us as well, but we wanted a true round display. And that was kind of a challenge. So in 2014, it wasn't available. In fact, there was a long article posted to Quora by Christoph Marshall, and I have a lot of respect for him. He's posted a lot of technical articles regarding smartphones to Quora. I follow him religiously. I'm a big fan. And so it was exciting to me to see this article come from him about why making a round touchscreen is so difficult, or a round display rather. I know the title of the URL says touchscreen, but he was answering the question of making a round display. And these were all the arguments that he listed. And I was so glad he listed these, because I was like, well, this is exactly what I need to tackle. You know, this is my hit list kind of deal. But really fortunate for us. So we finished out the year 2016, had a great Kickstarter campaign that ended in October. We delivered all the units in November, collapsed in December, basically. And also that's when Linda had to resign. So then went to CES in January 2017, and there just happened to be a toy that had a round display there. So we went to negotiate with that company, and it took 8 months to negotiate with that company. And the reason why the negotiation was so important was because if we were to make our own round display from scratch with even the same manufacturer, just the setup of the factory alone cost $4 million. So we wanted to not have to set up the factory and just buy the displays already manufactured. And so we managed to do that. Debbie Liu managed to negotiate that or handle that negotiation. And we negotiated to buy 1,000 displays from them for a prototype run. And so that was really exciting. And then that happened 8 months later. About that same time, we found our radio module that we wanted to use. It was interesting, in 2017, they weren't even making the radio module that we wanted to use yet. So we had to wait a long time for that. We found it in 2017, and then we found out in February 2018 that they had to delay it indefinitely. So like I said, those were pretty dark days, kind of struggling through all that. But now we have all of the components, and we've had our prototypes for over 1.5 years now. So it's really great. And I'll definitely show you the prototypes we have in hand right now. But next I want to talk about the operating system that our phone is based on, and that is Android. And a lot of people who live, especially on either the West Coast or the East Coast of America, see iPhones all around them. And so they don't realize that Android actually owns 83% of the world. So most of the world has an Android OS phone. Whereas the iOS, you can see the small silver circle is just 14%. And then the other operating systems that are available are, we do have some latent BlackBerry operating systems. And of course, the Windows OS used to be available, but they're switching to Android now as well, just this year. Some of our competitors, our original competitors were these independent mobile phone makers. And one of those you may have seen because it became quite popular is the Light phone. So it's a phone in the shape of two credit cards stacked on one on top of the other. And basically you can direct your phone to have all phone calls filtered through the Light phone. So you can go, to the beach or hiking in the woods and still not miss the call from your mom or, important person in your life. But you don't have to carry around the full-fledged smartphone that has social media on it and other distracting elements. So that really caught fire. They sold, I think it was 3,500 units with that particular model. Their next model sold 10,000 units in their pre-sales campaign. And I think their original 2G phone, even after their 3,500 units of their pre-sale campaign, eventually sold 10,000 units. So our other competitors, the Janus One was kind of a knockoff of the Light phone. It didn't do as well. Seed Studios, of course, that was inside of our original 2G phone. They did very well, 3,500 units for their Kickstarter campaign. Modern Runcible found out that we were launching our Kickstarter campaign in September, October of 2016. So they jumped the gun and launched their campaign in May of 2016, and they never delivered their phones. So, which is really sad. They have a bamboo back, and they're our closest competitor, really, in form factor. Lovely device. I wish they had shipped. And I did have conversations with that team to see if there was some way we could combine, but I was basically unknown when we were having the discussions, so they never went anywhere. Posh was the first phone to sell for $86. So the Posh mobile microphone is very tiny, but I don't know that they sold very many units. The phone that came after that, the Unihertz Jelly, they sold 12,000 units in their pre-sale Kickstarter campaign. And they have sold 3 phones since then. They're just fantastic. I really admire that team. The Banana phone is actually not a phone, it's a wireless handset. And I just include them here always because I love their team and they're just funny guys. Our new competition, because we are growing up in size and in our device itself, is the tier 2 level of Android phones. So in America, we don't hear much about these companies, but outside of America, they sell quite a number of phones. So these 3 companies are Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo. And typically they sell 70,000 units of their flagship phone every year. This is in contrast to Samsung, Huawei, and Apple, who typically sell in the millions every year of their flagship phones. So 70,000 units is actually a number that I've stumbled across over and over again when I see other consumer electronics releasing to the public. So the Essential phone sold 70,000 units when they released. The Snapchat Spectacles, they sold 70,000 units when they released as well. So I see 70,000 units come up again and again, and I think that's a great target for our company. Our manufacturers, we actually manufacture in Seattle, and our manufacturers, we have 2 assemblers, one in Bellevue and one in Renton. And between the 2 of them, they can manufacture 200,000 units per year. That means that we can carry 3 different phone lines here just out of Seattle, which is really exciting. Especially with the coronavirus impact, we may be one of the rare phone companies to actually deliver a phone in 2021 because of all the delays. So I guess that's the end of my, yep, that's the end of the, oh, and I see there are, thank you very much for adding the links to the chat. So what I'd like to do is show you actually a Cyrcle Phone and then get into the electronics if there's interest in that. So. I had these 2 charging. So I had 2 different models with me here today, and they have 2 different installation packs. So this one on the right is actually the default. This is what, without us modifying anything on the operating system, this is what it looks like. So we have the typical mountain view in the back, which is the default Android wallpaper. Let me show you the, so here's a, sorry, it's hard to show on Zoom. Always we're challenged when we're live streaming to show these, but so you can see that the icons are square, and because my eyes are older, I prefer to see the time a little bit larger, but we do have it at the top as well. We've worked with the operating system to actually put the time at the top. So this has a notification. I installed the mail, a mail client on there. So it was just notifying me of my mail.
So what size is that? What size?
Of the display or
diameter?
The enclosure?
Both the screen and the with enclosure.
Yes, so the display itself is 3.6 inches across in diameter, and then the outer exterior is 4 inches. So, and I have so a lot of people had the original iPhone. So this is actually an iPhone 4. So this gives you a sense of, whoops, so frustrating with all the light. This gives you a sense of approximately, it's as wide as an iPhone 4 in landscape. Because of that, it's actually faster for typing. So for example, when you want to send a text message, it's such a breeze on this phone. And then also watching videos, very nice, because they're always in landscape. So, yep. So we've
what's the depth of it? The depth? How thick is it?
Oh,
about 3 inches.
So this is still our prototype. So it's pretty bulky right now. It's 14 millimeters thick, which is twice as thick as some of the higher end phones. Some of the higher end phones are, they're 7 to 8 millimeters thick. So, and ours will lose about 5 millimeters when we go to production.
If I can jump in, having a smaller phone is actually really important to some people. My wife uses a 5S, the original 5S, because anything else is just too big for her hands. And I have small hands too, and I can't, I cannot operate my iPhone with one hand.
Yes.
So, and Apple is no longer making smaller phones.
Mm-hmm.
So having a phone that's a little bit thicker is okay. You can hold on to it, and a little bit smaller is good for a lot of people. So this is a good thing. Yeah, this is
definitely.
So do you have you don't have a landscape mode or a portrait mode at all, right? How does, from a technical point of view, how does that work? Yeah.
Yes, you can, but it makes no difference because the display is the same portrait as it is landscape.
So if I get a did your phone rotate message, I can ignore it. Right? Yeah.
Exactly. But we still, I mean, because it's Android, we still have those options on the phone. So everything that you would expect from an Android phone is on our phone.
Right.
So
that's... Yeah, if they were all that shape, I wouldn't have to worry about all the different layouts.
Absolutely. So
all the different companies have their own modifications of Android. So is your company doing a vanilla, just taking it straight from Google, I think it is, and just putting it in?
Yes, ours is clean as possible. So a lot of people like my desk is full of phones, but like a lot of people like the Pixel. So this is a Pixel phone here because it's the cleanest, one of the cleanest flavors of the Android open source project. So AOSP. Ours is probably even cleaner than that, but we do modify it a little bit. So for example, I don't know if you can see, but we moved the timestamp from the corner to the middle. And we moved the navigation buttons in so they're easier to grasp. And of course, we've changed the background wallpaper is different. Sorry.
So then you'll be doing all the updates as they come out?
Yes. So we'll be doing those as long as we're in business. So the harsh reality is that if we get 500 orders, we would deliver those at a loss and have to close the company. We would have to get over 3,200 orders to be able to deliver them and keep the company open. So, and we'll be brutally honest with all the people that we sell pre-sales to about those realities. But a lot of people just want to try it. You know, it's exciting to have a different form factor and also to explore what that means. Also for manufacturers, so if you are manufacturing a motorcycle and you want a radial display, or a car and you want a radial display, or if you have not just the Nest thermostat, but any other, you know, for example, if you have a robot, but you want a round display, we've already made that possible for you. So you just stick our phone on the front and it's done. Like you have all the sensors that you want in there. You have just, you know, there's another thing I didn't mention. We have a fabulous camera on the front. So most iPhones, for example, just have an 8 megapixel, and even Android phones just have an 8 megapixel on the front. We have a 13 megapixel on the front and back. And we have two, like I said before, 2 headphone jacks. We also have 2 USB ports. So you have a choice, whatever cable you have laying around. If you have a USB micro B, you can use that to charge it slowly. Or if you have a USB type C cable, then you can use it to charge it in 15 minutes. So
I have a number of questions about the specs, but I don't want to get away from your electronics because I'm curious about that too.
No, please, go ahead.
I also, there's kind of a number of related questions about when you expect to ship and, you know, your processor and how that'll fit in the time frame and stuff. And then also going back to the business side, how are you going to promote this and what are your sales channels and so on?
Definitely. So those are all really good questions. So we were supposed to launch the 3rd week in January, and our Kickstarter video that we filmed turned out to be a piece of crap, bluntly, because we tried to do it as a team and it had all the points that we wanted as a team in it, but it had no just pop to it. So, you know, we had a diverse cast and we showed off all the features and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But wow, we cannot put together a video. So we can put together some really cool phones, but not videos. So we had to try something else. And it just so happened we were working out of WeWork downtown at that time. And a woman behind us had a son who was looking for some work for his portfolio. And she said, why don't you hire him? He charges $50 per video. I'm like, what? Like, so he did this phenomenal video. And so then we were ready to launch in April and coronavirus hit. And launching a phone seemed a little irrelevant in that moment. And so I have to be quite honest, I was distracted putting together, you know, because we were prohibited from coming into WeWork a little bit. A lot of people weren't coming into WeWork at that time. And I thought, gosh, we could have more people come into WeWork if we just had a temperature sensor right outside the badge scanning door on our floor. And so, yeah, I took about a month putting that together. And then we had there was a supply chain issue for the temperature sensor because everybody in the world wanted to make temperature sensors at that time. And yeah, a lot of confusion around that time. And then the protests broke out. And so we decided, meanwhile, we thought, gosh, you know, we got to wait till this all kind of sorts out a little bit. So in the meantime, our enclosure, we would like to make better. And so these are just the shells that we're using to protect the valuable electronics inside. We used them at CES so people could interact with the devices, explaining to them that it would be thinner when it was eventually made. And so we decided to launch an enclosure contest. So we did that on My Mini Factory, ran for 6 weeks, and got some fabulous enclosure designs from that. And we, let's see, there were over 64 submissions to that contest. We identified the 9 top designers and offered them all contracts offered to them to pitch us for designing the next enclosure. And so that's exciting. They're eager to, thank you for posting that. So they're excited to join us in that experience. We have to decide between the 9 designers. We were hoping like some would pitch us high and some would pitch us low. So like, you know, we could design, but yeah, it'll all depend on how much money we can raise in our pre-sales to see which designer we can afford for that. And so, yeah, we were all set to launch September 15th, which is tomorrow. And then we found out 10 days ago that we have a new hardware deadline. So a lot of companies that are using Android are deciding not to ship, especially outside the United States, especially in China, are deciding not to ship with the Google mobile suite. So that has the YouTube app, it has your Gmail app, it has, you know, the whole Google suite there. And we were recently notified that the deadline for our particular module was October 20th. And there's no way that we can make it, but we still wanted to try because it helps us for our next product. And so we are going through that certification process right now. And we had to lay down the torch for the pre-sales campaign until after that's finished. So that deadline's October 20th. It feels like forever, like we've had to postpone and we've had to postpone and we've had to postpone, and it's so frustrating, and I just want to deliver. That's all I want to do right now, because we've had these for over 1.5 years. They're ready, and except for the enclosure, and so it's just so frustrating. It's just really, really frustrating.
Kind of lost me a little. What is this deadline? It's a deadline for you or by you or what? So what?
No, so the news reached us late. I wish that we had had this news in the spring, because then we could have been working towards this deadline earlier. But Google decided that the last time that you could apply for our particular module configuration for the Google mobile services is October 20th, and you need to be in the pipeline before September 20th, so 30 days before that.
So this is a deadline from Google for what? Have your hardware ready to accept, to allow them to ship your their software?
Yes, and so I felt really panicked, but then I've been looking around, and a lot of other, I would say, competitor smartphones are not shipping with Google mobile services for various reasons. One, so the reason that they tout to the public is for security, because when you install Google mobile services, it tracks your data. And if you're concerned about security at all, you should not be installing GMS. So, and we installed F-Droid, which is an app store exclusively filled with open source and free applications. So for example, they launched a couple of weeks ago, they launched a YouTube stream, so you can view all of your YouTube videos. And it's actually, I've heard, I haven't played with it much, but a lot of people have been saying that it's better to them, it's better than the YouTube app itself, because you have more control and more features and things like that. So we had tentatively decided 6 weeks ago to just ship, before we found out about this deadline, because we thought we had a choice up until we found out about the deadline, that we would just ship with the F-Droid App Store, because we're running open source hardware and open source enclosure with open source software. We're with one of the cleanest versions of Android open source project. And then to have an open source app store on top of that, I mean, it's just like, it's bigger than a trifecta. It's whatever you would call like a 5-point star. So we thought, gosh, that would just be a really kick-ass phone. So why don't we do that? And then we found out about the deadline, and we were like, wow, you know, we're going to be launching this phone for the next 2.5 years, maybe 3. We may not want that door closed to us. You know, let's go ahead and go through the process and see what it entails. We probably won't make it, but it'll be experience points for the next generation. So if you follow any other independent smartphone projects, so for example, the Fairphone, which is a social enterprise out of the UK, they shipped with Google mobile services on their Android 9 phone, and then on their Android 10 phone, they dropped Google mobile services. If you've followed Purism, they made the Librem laptop and also the Librem phone, and the Librem phone does not have the Google mobile services. So those are all things to consider, definitely business decisions for our team. Right now, we are laying down the torch yet again, just to go through that process and see what that's about. The positive point, which is on our side, is a lot of pre-sale campaigns do really well in November. So October, November, December being the highest months, with the November being the highest of all. So we were hoping to do September, October. So kind of the lead in, and we did have a lot of anxiety about, you know, because with schools going back to school, a lot of our demographic is involved in that. And there's a lot of anxiety around that. So we didn't know if, we thought, well, we can't ship September 1st, you know, maybe everything would settle down by September 15th. So that was our thinking 6 weeks ago, but things change and you have to adapt. So I'd like to go into the electronics. Did I answer all your questions, Ken? I feel like I'm still missing some.
No, that's fine. Go ahead with your presentation, and I asked you too many at once, so don't worry about it. Please continue with your presentation.
Okay.
Electronics is always fun too.
Yeah. Okay. So this one takes a little bit of time. It's a lot of software, and so it takes a little bit of time to pull up. Let me see if I can show you. So in 2018, summer of 2018, so I let my team go in February 2018, and you know, I should have gone and gotten a real job, really, but I just couldn't stop. And so I just thought, you know, I will work and see how far I can get, and just pretend that the modules are going to show up someday. And so I worked on the board a long time. And so when you show people the board and what you've worked on, most lay people don't have a grasp of like, what does that even mean? Like if you show them a picture of this, they're like, you know, where's the headphone jack? You know, where is the power button? This tells me nothing, you know. But fortunately, around the same time, let's see if I can bring it up. This is a lot of CPU here, and I'm trying not to crash. But about the same time, the EDA program that I use for making the board joined with Autodesk Fusion 360. And hopefully this won't crash.
Whatever you're doing, I can tell it's slowing down your computer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really slow. So hopefully this won't crash. So we're going to go ahead and pull up. I'll probably have to log in.
It's definitely interfering with the audio. We're getting some audio noise, static.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull that up in the background. But what it basically means is that I took the time, and it adds about 30% of work to the basic laying out of the board. But I uploaded the CAD file for each. Yeah, it's not coming up. Shoot. I uploaded the CAD file for each component, each and every component. And just to give you a sense of what that means, we have 356 components on our board. And so because of that, I was able to give people a little bit more accurate perception of what the board was going to look like, even before we manufactured it. So sorry, this is coming up. We're getting there. And I apologize that I didn't have this pulled up previously. But honestly, I was afraid that we would crash.
We're an informal group.
Okay. While that's loading, does anyone have any other questions that I can answer?
I have endless questions, so other people really should jump in.
Okay.
Because I can ask questions all night. For instance, what are you doing for funding, if that's something you can talk about?
I'm self-funded. So, and that's really difficult. Every time we manufacture, do a prototype run, it's between $5,000 to $10,000. So because of that, we've only done 4 prototype runs.
So what do you expect to sell these for?
So we announced that at CES this year that we would sell them retail for $750. That's the shiny, sleek, sexy version, but that you could get it for a lower price, either wholesale or during the pre-sale campaign for $500. So it definitely blocks out a lot of the market. If there was some way that we could manufacture and sell a phone for $250, we would make a killing, absolute killing.
What are the expensive components besides maybe the round screen? What causes the price to be a particular?
That's a good question. So of course, yes, of course the round display, but also the cameras. So when you buy in limited quantities, so less than 100,000 units, it becomes extremely expensive.
Those are both 13 megapixel cameras?
Yes, 13 megapixel cameras. So the battery is not cheap either. Definitely there's some pricey components on here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is going to render correctly, but I like to change some of these shadowing settings. Let's see. Here, this is it. Okay, that's a little bit better. So as you can see, this is a better representation of the board. And when you are talking with people about it, I have to excuse these 6 pin marks here and then also here. We only have those on during testing. The product does not ship with those. They are the connections for our UART debug cables. So it's not going through the battery. But I just wanted to show you. So here's the back of the board. Let's see if it'll redraw. So here you can see is the camera module that peeks out over the display itself. And below that is a speaker. It's actually a floating speaker, so we can position the speaker anywhere we want. Here, this large block is, of course, the battery. We received a new shipment of batteries in May that I have yet, we may be shipping with those instead, that are thinner and flatter. But as of right now, depending on the pre-sale amount, we can do more development and make it a sexier device, or we can ship it as it is right now. So this is the battery connector right here. This is the micro B connector. Let's see if I can see around this way. So this is the micro B connector, USB connector. This is the USB Type-C connector. This is the switch that switches between the USB Type-C and the micro B connectors. This is one of the headphone jacks here. This is the second headphone jack on the other side. This is a backup battery right here. It's actually smaller in real life. It's one of the few components that doesn't have the actual size in the CAD formation. This is our dual SIM card tray connector, excuse me. This is our SD card tray. This is volume down. This is volume up. This is power. And this is a flash button for flashing different builds on the phone. We have a microphone here. We have another microphone on the other side. And let's see if I can get to the top corner.
What's your processor?
So we have a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my favorites, let's see if I can find it. My favorite tools on this is the Explode tool, because you can see all of the components coming off and you can see the printed circuit board beneath in all of its beauty. And that's the board that took me the most time.
So when you're building a phone, are you working from reference designs that say Qualcomm provides you? Or how does one even, I'm a software guy. How does one even start to say, I'm going to build a phone?
Yes, exactly. So yes, you receive some support documentation for whichever module you decide to use, and then you try to build around that. And so, for example, it doesn't say which USB Type-C connector to use. So you have to figure that out yourself. And while we're on the topic of USB Type-C, so most products still ship with a micro B connector or a USB Type-C that still is only running USB 2.0, because if you do the full shebang, which I did for this phone, which is USB 3.0 for your USB Type-C. So for example, our micro B that runs USB 2.0, it only has 7 components in addition to the connector. But the USB Type-C connector that's running USB 3.0 Super Speed Plus, and that's why the phone charges in less than 20 minutes, it has over 36 components. It is vastly more complicated of an architecture than it is for the USB 2.0. So when you have a product that says, oh, we have a USB Type-C connector on it, make sure that you don't assume that it's USB 3.0 or even 3.1, because a lot of it's just vastly more complicated, and it does take more engineering hours to put that architecture in.
So they don't just have a USB 3.0 chip connector done. They're not at that point yet.
Right. Yeah. That would be really, really cool. Although I probably would not have been able to fit that on the board. So you can see there's not a lot of blank space on this board. There's some blank space in front of, let me go ahead and reduce this a little bit. Some blank space you can see right here in front of where you plug in the battery. And if you don't have blank space and you can't plug it in, there's blank space in front of the SD card connector, in front of the SIM card connector, because same deal. Otherwise you can't plug those in. But other than that, it's not a lot of blank space on this board.
What about heat? Was heat an issue at all? Packing everything in there?
That's a really good question. So we used, I don't know how to pronounce them, but they're spelled FLIR. I've heard some people say flyers, some people say FLIR, heat detection guns. And of course, now a lot of people know them because they use them for testing, forehead temperatures, the more accurate ones. But we used one of those guns to test the temperature of the board until we made sure that all of the components were safely within range, and by that I mean that none of them heat up substantially. So interesting story, we did have a component that was heating up, and it turned out that the footprint was backwards. So we were really grateful to have that heat gun just to double check. And what happened was, I was lazy that day and I downloaded somebody else's footprint, and they had misdesigned it. And that was the last day that I did that.
So another hardware related question. At this point, do you have all the hardware in hand except the case, or are you still waiting for parts or haven't ordered parts, or kind of where are you at with that?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. So I only order, I'm a miser, so I only order enough parts to manufacture whatever prototype run we have. So I do not pre-order those parts until we receive pre-orders from the public, and then we order those. So the thing to be careful about is...
We just lost your audio.
Okay. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah, it seems to be back now. Anyway, the thing to be aware of is
Can you hear me now?
yes. Oh, okay. Quite the delay on your video, but go ahead.
I'm going to shut that. I just remembered OneDrive actually takes up a lot of cycles. And usually if I shut that off, suddenly things get a lot better. And I'm sorry, I apologize that I did not shut that down when we first came on. Is my audio back?
Yes, and that is working much better.
Okay, so that's OneDrive. For any of you that do have audio problems over Zoom, if you you pause your OneDrive syncing for, like 2 hours, then your sound will come back.
Ah, nice to know. Thank you.
Good to know. So, sorry, I forgot about that. I wish I'd remembered that at the beginning. So what I do is I order just enough for our prototype run, and then I specifically selected components. We only have 3 components coming from China. The rest of the 356 components actually are sourced in America. And I have a backup for each component so that, we're not limited by a particular component. Even for the display, I have multiple vendors for the display because the display itself in the last 2 years has become quite popular. And so more people are using it. Thank goodness for us.
The circular display? Yeah.
Yes. And then the battery, we can always adapt around different batteries, but the 3 components that we get from China are the display, the cameras, because I have not found a good camera vendor in America that makes cameras small enough to fit in a cell phone. If anybody knows of one, please let me know. And then of course our battery. Batteries just really aren't made in America. I think there's a lot of restrictions around the safety. We are seeing a little bit more of the electric, for electric vehicles, we're seeing more of those batteries being manufactured stateside, but they're just small houses. They're not on a large scale, as far as I can tell.
How many, what quantity of parts do you have to order before you start seeing significant price reductions? If you order 500, 1,000, 10,000, where are the big breaks?
Definitely. So definitely 1,000 is a huge, so even if we receive 500 orders, it's just wise for us to order 1,000 parts and then make up the rest of, make as many units as we can. And 5,000 is the next jump. 10,000 is the next jump. 50,000, and then 100,000, and then 200,000, and then 500,000. Yeah, those are the jumps in the industry.
And what are your sales or pre-sales plans now? What are you doing now? So, well, let me back up. When do you actually expect to ship? And what are your channels for shipping, including what are you doing now besides having a pre-sale button on your website?
Right. So we have been, the video is ready to go. The video is the end all be all really for any good pre-sale campaign. You better like your video because you'll be seeing it until you die.
And videos are hard. I'll just jump in because that's what I do. But I was in a hackathon a few months ago. And, it was no problem doing the software, but the video, I don't know anything about making videos.
Yes. Those are just really, they're really substantial in making the needle move. So the better your video is, the better your pre-sale campaign can be.
So is the plan then the Kickstarter? Go ahead.
Yes, we would like to do 6 weeks on Kickstarter, followed by 6 weeks on Indiegogo. And that sounds like a long time, because you also have then 2 weeks in between. So it's about 14 weeks. but most of the orders come in the first 3 days of the Kickstarter campaign. And really the rest of the time is just leaving the store open. And honestly, the way that our team works, once those pre-sale campaigns are done, we're done. Like, we don't take any more orders. So, you know, if we were to get a wholesale order for like 1,000 units or more, then definitely we would reopen manufacturing again and do it again. But we need to manufacture in bulk. And so in order to do that, we need all of the orders in bulk as well.
And this is an assembled unit, no more kits?
Right. No more. Well, if we receive 500 units, most likely individuals will be receiving theirs in 5 pieces that they would have to hand assemble themselves. And the reason for that is because we would not be able to afford the external FCC certification. So our boards are pre-certified by the FCC, and we can ship the boards as they are right now, but not inside of an enclosure.
How interesting. How long, and if you don't mind the sidetrack, what's involved in getting the FCC approval? You have to go through some kind of testing. Is there a fee involved? That you know, one more big check to write, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the FCC certification is from $10,000 to $50,000, depending on whom you talk to. And I've noticed that the larger the company is, the closer it is to the $50,000 mark, and the smaller the company is, the closer it is to the $10,000 mark. And it also has to depend on, you know, if you're just doing Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, you're definitely just $10,000. But we're also doing cellular, so we need to be certified for those bands as well. And so ours will probably be closer to about $15,000, $20,000. And the irony is that all of these certifications, even the Google Mobile Service, Google Mobile Suite certification, we have done in China. So even though we manufacture in Seattle and we're getting these certifications that are for America, we have to send prototypes to China to get them certified. It's just ridiculous because the certification houses here in America are so much more expensive than the ones in China. So
maybe we should open the certification house.
It's true. It's true. So there are certification houses in, for example, in California, but they charge a hot penny to be able to certify your device there. So it's rough. And yeah.
Hardware's hard, as they say.
It's hard.
Well, you've been talking for an hour and a half. This is great. I want to bring back to one other thing. As a woman in a male-dominated field, have you personally, you know, felt the symptoms that you feel comfortable talking about? Mm-hmm. Has it, you know, I don't know if you've gone looking for funding, if that's affected that, how your career, you know, your career path is. Any words of advice or experiences that really stand out?
So I think the most painful part for us is that we'll go to pitch a male investor who traditionally has had some experience investing in hardware, and he will immediately say, "Oh, what? All of your founders are women? Then you need to talk to, you know, this other firm that only invests in women." And we're like, they don't invest in hardware. Like, they know nothing about hardware. They're well-meaning and, you know, everything, but we're pitching to you specifically because not only do you have the funds, but you have the connections for consumer electronics, and we need those as a business, you know, paradigm. We that's what we need. So we've run against that wall again and again. The first time it happened, you know, we just politely like nodded our head and said, okay, sure. And then got in there, and it turned out a lot of the firms that are funding female investors or female founders are investing $10,000 to $100,000.
Tiny amounts. And
for hardware, our seed round is $3 million. So it's like, most investors here, for example, in the Northwest, don't touch $3 million. Like, even if a whole organization, angel organization gets together, they may be able to fund like maybe up to 750,000 as an organization, or maybe several organizations, whether it's, now I'm blanking on all the organizations' names, but Angels Alliance, gosh, I'm so sorry.
Ritsu and
yes, even if they all get together and they fund, you know, maybe they'll get up to like $1 million. Right. But for hardware, most of our investors are in Silicon Valley, New York, and Boston. So those are the places that we really reach out to, and we research those investors very intensely to make sure, you know, that are they investing in consumer electronics? Have they had a healthy exit in the last 2 years? Are they still happy about investing in consumer electronics? In other words, you know, those kinds of things. And a lot of the investors are actually in Europe, who are consistently investing in hardware, and also in China. So, you know, it's hard for us as a US-based startup that manufactures in the Seattle area to get funding outside of America, but that's where a lot of the funding is taking place. So for example, if anybody followed the Essential Phone, they raised, was it $300 million for Playground Ventures, which invested in the Essential Phone. And they have $3 million left for the Essential Phone. They had to actually close their doors April 4th this year, finally.
But he had the name, you know, he had this whole reputation behind him.
He made Android. I mean, right. He made the operating system. Why would you not invest in him?
Right.
So, I mean, this is
now we know why, but yeah,
a key authority. But at the same time, a lot of the investors who invested in that round were Tencent, Coast. I'm blanking on the other investors, but a lot of them were outside of the United States. So when we look at that, we think, gosh, you know, maybe that's where we should be spending our time. But it would be just so sweet to not only have investment in the United States, but also to have investment from the Northwest. You know, even if it was like the million, like we have $1 million coming from the Northwest and then 2 million coming from, you know, Silicon Valley or something like that.
Have you felt a need to relocate to the Silicon Valley?
You know, my husband's company is out of Silicon Valley. And so, you know, we've talked about it as a family. Could easily relocate there, but not easily, but
right. It could be done if you had to.
It could be done. Yeah. It is possible.
But who wants to do that?
At the same time, we have an excellent assembler here, and that's cut rate. I mean, not only are they've been doing it for decades for Boeing and for other hardware corporations here locally, but they beat out anybody else's quote by like, I remember one quote I got back from them, it was like for $200. And I'm like, I pushed it, like, I was so shocked. I like kind of virtually pushed it back across the table. And I said, just to let you know, I went to like 5 other houses and I got a bid from them and they all bid $1,800. And they said, thank you for letting us know, pushing it virtually back across to me. We will still charge you only $200. And I was like, wow. And so like to move away from trusted partners that you've been working with for years, I just, it's hard for me to wrap my head around now. Although originally, you know, like if you had asked me 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, I think we can do that easily.
So now you've been doing this for a while, and I know what it's like to run a startup for far too long, but you're still in there, you're in the game, you're not going to give up, you're going to ship the sucker, one way or another, right? That's what keeps you going.
I can't imagine doing anything else, honestly.
Exactly. So for me, it's the thought of having to get a real job, but
yeah, exactly. And, you know, I did receive some job offers this last spring, and basically they were like, how would you like to lay out the board for our project, which is now Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and we just need to add cellular. So all you have to do is like, you know, choose the module and lay out the board.
Right.
Like, that's it. Like, I don't have to do a video. I don't have to like do, I don't have to do accounting for the business. I don't have to like show my face to anybody, you know, except maybe at conferences. You know, I could go talk to at conferences, and that I had to say that was a really hard day for me.
But you made the right decision, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have been at this for an hour and a half. I've been dominating the questions. I really want to see if there's anyone else in the audience who'd like to pop in with some questions before we start wrapping up.
And Kimberly, thank you for your voice on the chat.
And anyone else, really?
Yes.
Otherwise,
hello. I was wondering, what size screens were you looking for before you stumbled upon the toy maker?
Brandon, that's such a great question. The toy maker screen is actually a couple millimeters larger than what we need. So thank you, Kimberly, for the chat message. We actually need a screen that's 3.2, that has an active area of 3.2. So because we measure it in millimeters, so our display is 102 millimeters, or our product is 102 millimeters wide. And that's just about the maximum that people can hold in their hands before they feel cramping. And so when we go to 104 or even 106, there's a marked difference in that. And so when we originally set out to find a display, we wanted something that was a little bit smaller. So ours is 3.65, and we wanted something up to 3.5. We just needed it just a little bit small. And fortunately now, I don't know if you've seen so there's, of course, the Amazon Echo, the tower, the cylindrical tower that everybody sees. There's also the Amazon Alexa Spot, but then there's a Amazon Alexa Spot. So I'm sorry, I said Spot, but I meant Dot. So there's the Amazon Alexa tower, there's the Dot, and then there's a Spot that has a display on it. It is the cutest thing, and it's so adorable. And I wish I could show. Unfortunately, Wendy Wilson, one of our co-founders, made off with ours because it was so cute. we actually bought it to tear it apart, and in the process of ordering it, we actually then found out the display manufacturer, so we didn't have to tear it apart, and we were crying because when it arrived, we didn't want to tear it apart anyway. So it was a long discussion, but it's adorable, and I highly recommend them above the Dot, above the tower. It's so cool. It shows you the weather, so interactive. It just,
the Echo Spot, smart alarm clock with Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll put that in the comments.
Thank you. So that actually is nearing completion of their contract. 3 manufacturers are making that display for Amazon, and they had an exclusivity contract, and that's ending. It may have ended this summer, actually. So we can now buy that display, and we would like to put it in future generations. So it takes a long time to build around the new display. So just to do the display driver itself for this display took over 6 weeks. So when you change out your display, it's not something you want to consider lightly. All I can say is we would love to live to see another day so that we can actually have a perfectly round cell phone eventually as our 3rd smartphone, and we would love to have that display on there. So thank you.
And going back to an earlier question, if things work reasonably close to plan, when do you expect to announce your Kickstarter, or if you're like me, you don't want to put a date on it, but I totally understand.
So it'll definitely be after that October 20th deadline.
Right.
So, and then like What, are we going to launch on the election? Probably not.
And then you've got Christmas coming up and Thanksgiving, and yeah,
yes,
there's always something.
There's a lot to consider. So, you know, we would like to, if we're definitely not making that deadline anytime soon, it would be great to launch before October 20th, just so that we could get started before elections, you know, election day. And also, it would be great to have our campaign running during Black Friday and Electronics Monday. You know, those would be definitely days that we could take advantage of during the campaign.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this, considering I know how busy you are and what it takes to run this startup.
You're welcome.
So if there are any more questions, we'll probably call it a day. I will post the recording as soon as I can. What I'll do is when I get it uploaded to YouTube, I'll send you the link and you can review it before I make it public. And if you can make your slides available somewhere, then I can post a link to that also in the meetup.
Okay, I'll do that, definitely. And Kimberly, I didn't get to answer your one question about the tool tips showing up when you see the 3D version. And yes, you can make that happen. It requires a little bit more post work to it. Sometimes I do add those. Great.
So thank you all. Thank you, especially Christina. Hope to see you all just a few weeks because of the way it worked out. We'll have Ken Sheriff on board. That should also be very good. And if any of you have ideas for topics you'd like to see, let me know, because that's the fun part of doing this. I get to talk to interesting people like Christina. So do let me know if you have ideas for November and December and so on. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Christina. That was great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, everybody. Thank you all. Bye. Stay well and stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye. Let's see. Stop recording.